year for Seattle on 3rd and 11. Wilson dancing around, trying to get away, and he can't. A sack. It's Von Miller. Michelle with a big hole. Still going. Fighting his way inside the 10. 1st and goal, Rams. It's Michelle breaking out. End zone throw. They can't take him away. Touchdown, Rams. Cooper Kupp. Wilson going deep. Metcalf knocked away at the last moment by Ramsey.
All right, welcome everyone to the second episode of East Coast Rams podcast with your host, Zach Mayer and Ashton Spencer. Ashton, how are we doing?
Doing great. I hope everyone's having a fantastic Christmas season, holiday season. Looking forward to going over this Seahawks-Rams game. It was let's say, a different type of game than we were expecting, Zach.
Yeah, I mean, it was, definitely it was a gift to us before Christmas, but I think we were hoping for a little more excitement in this game. It was kind of a lackluster game. At least on offense. Defense did a pretty good job.
Yeah, the NFL, the last 3 or 4 NFL games in general were very slugfest, slow, methodical games, very defensive oriented. I mean, we had a 0-9 game with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers versus Saints. So going into this game, typically the Seahawks-Rams games are not the highest scoring, but they're typically not completely defensive 3-3 going into half.
For sure. I mean, we've seen better performances from Russell Wilson in the past, and I looking at his stats this week, this is probably, I think, from PFF was like his lowest score that he's received versus the Rams in his career. So, definitely lackluster performance. On especially on their offensive side. But why don't we go ahead and start it with quarter number 1, breaking down the game, and we can dive into it a little bit more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so, I mean, we'll go into the first half and first quarter, but I'm starting out, Zach, like, there's not much to say. Both teams had a lot of just empty drives. The Rams end up within their first drive going like 50 yards. It looks like they're about to punt, and then there's a crucial penalty on Seattle, causes the Rams to get in field goal range. And Matt Gay nails a 55-yarder, or let's say now Pro Bowler Matt Gay nails a 55-yarder. Very good on him. Good stuff. And that turns out to be the only points the Rams will score in the whole half. Seahawks basically do nothing for the first and second quarter until right before the half. They get a nice little drive put together, and they end up knocking a field goal of their own. For the most part, I mean, the biggest play on the Rams' part is not a good play in the first half, and that is a deep pass intended for Kupp that gets intercepted by Quandre Diggs. That's the second interception by Stafford to Quandre Diggs, where it's just like a little... it's not little. It's not good. It's just not a good decision. A bad throw. That's second time in a row he's done it to Quandre Diggs. And generally, I mean, those beautiful 54-yard touchdowns, they come with this curse. You're going to have some ducks in there. Any reactions to the first half? Really, like first and second quarter, both. Like, there's not much to say because there wasn't much done.
No, yeah, it was definitely a defensive game. I feel like the defense gave the Rams a lot of, good momentum to kind of give them in a good position to come out here and just, score some points. The Rams were eating up the clock. They were driving down the field consistently, but they went for it a couple times on, fourth and short, and, weren't able to, pick up those yards for a first down, which, again, just put them kind of, stuck at that 3-point score until the half. The Stafford interception, wasn't pretty. I didn't even see Cooper Kupp, even turn anywhere near that direction. And so that was just kind of the one really bad misread between the two. Other than that, they had a great night together. But yeah, it was, just seeing the Rams not be able to, um, push the ball down the field and get into that red zone and getting it into getting in the end zone was, something that I was really hoping to see early on.
Did you agree with McVay going forward on that 4th and short?
I mean, if I think there was two of them, and I can't remember which one was in the first half or the second half, but if you're in, if you're in their territory, that's one thing. But there was once where we did it in our own territory, which I think was the problem. I think that might have been even closer to the end of the half, um, but also making sure that you're relying on this hot defense right now, and you know, for me, I rather score the points. If you can get the points in, that's what I would rather do, especially against a Seahawks team. But I know that you're going up Russ Wilson, who more often than not scores touchdowns than settles for field goals. So it's definitely a hard choice this year. It seems like a lot of teams are going on it for that fourth down stretch.
Yeah, I mean, in general, I get the reasoning why. I just disagree with it because the points make it like, especially how the game was going, it was hard to get in the red zone. It was hard to get near the other end of the field, and with how hard they were playing, you take your points when you can. Now, I understand the whole like statistical element to it. We haven't been good on converting 4th downs, so like you have to look at it from your context too a little bit. And I feel like McVay. My another issue is just McVay isn't consistent for when he goes for it and when he doesn't. And I hope he sorts that out because I feel like sometimes he reacts too much to people being like, why didn't you go for it for 4th like 2 games ago? Like, oh, you should have gone for it. And it's like, it depends the context, depends the situation. And I feel like in either of the situations this game, I just don't believe it's warranted. I know hindsight is 50-50, but in general, I feel like we wouldn't have been in as difficult situations early in the 4th if we had extra points on the board. And you put Seattle in worse situations by putting points on the board. And that's what you want. You want to play good situational football, just like McVay says. And I just feel like it was a little inconsistent with how he's been doing that this year.
No, I definitely agree. They're really trying, and they're really trying to get their offense, that momentum they need. But it just didn't show up in that first quarter or first half. Um,
Von Miller gets his first sack in the first half. By the way, can't forget to put that in there. First sack as a Ram. Going into third quarter, the opening drive by the Seahawks, the defense bends and definitely breaks. Zach, they give up a 3-yard running touchdown to Dallas, the backup running back for Seahawks. A good drive by Seattle. I don't think necessarily defense did a lot terribly wrong. It was just well put together. It was the most execution the Seahawks had the entire day, and it showed. They came out fresh and crisp, and definitely the best work of their team the whole day, cueing the touchdown.
Definitely, and I believe on that run, there's a big holding call on Ramsey,
Hmm.
which gave them additional yardage. But yeah, it was a good run for them. They needed that momentum to get themselves into a better position. Same thing with the Rams, but the Rams responded well. They came back, drove the ball down, and you know the Stafford Cooper Cup game was there, and we got that 6-yard touchdown from them, and that was great. I mean, I think that was also the drive that we got the big long Cooper Cup stretch where we were honestly kind of concerned for him when he caught the ball and he came down, and he kind of gave that little thumbs up that he was okay, but he had to be out for a couple plays to
He got the
kind
wind
of make
knocked
sure
out of
everything.
him. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, what can we say about Cup? Like, the entire third quarter and fourth quarter was really Cup just showing why he's the best wide receiver in the NFL this year. It's just amazing work. I know we were texting back and forth, and it was kind of like, what are we going to say about the offense? But like Cooper Cup, and we'll get into that a little bit more specifically. But going later into the game, the Rams get a 3-and-out right after they score, and then the Rams end up having a just really good early fourth quarter. Sony Michelle, what like really good hard running, some solid runs too of like 15, 20 yards. We really needed him to break out those runs when he did. Van Jefferson do like some sweeps or jet sweeps. I've been saying we needed more jet sweeps in our offense. I know we got away from it after Robert Woods got hurt, but it's nice to see Van Jefferson making good plays with that. And then after we score a touchdown off of Cooper Cup again, uh, Seahawks come driving back down the field, and Jalen Ramsey makes a great pass breakup. He basically said that he was trying to bait Russell Wilson into a pick, and that Russell Wilson just threw it slightly a little bit further downfield than he expected, and he had to do pass breakup instead of pick. But great play by Ramsey either way. And then later in the fourth, whenever the Seahawks were trying to drive down to tie up the game on fourth down, 4th and 6, I believe, there's a non-call on Ernest Jones. Like, yeah, it should have been a penalty. I don't think you would disagree, Zach.
No, and when you first see it, you almost think, based on the angle, I think, of watching it, that it was a fair. But when you go back and you rewatch it over and over again, you can clearly tell that it was a pass interference call, and that's probably what the line judges saw when the refs, when they saw it, was they didn't see the contact. They were especially where the ball was placed and things like that. But you go back and rewatch it, and you can clearly tell that it was a pass interference. I know there's a lot of pointing fingers, especially with the previous game, and on the championship night against the Saints, like, oh, this is the Rams getting it again. But there's a big difference. The Seahawks weren't playing well. They weren't making that comeback, and it wasn't really a game sealing effort. It is what it is. You kind of have to pick it up and move on.
If you're going for it on 4th and 6 in your own territory, you're desperate. That's what it comes down to. You're just desperate in that point in time. And really, it should have been called. It wasn't. I don't think it changes the game at all. Just like the Saints got the ball in overtime that game too. They had an opportunity to win it, and they didn't. And that's what it comes down to. Going into the fourth quarter, the Rams have a good drive. They end up having Matt Gay kick a field goal that basically ends up icing the game, and the Rams end up just draining clock, and you have Seattle going to desperation mode, and the Rams end up winning 20-10. Zach, to you, what are some of the offensive highlights from this game?
Well, I think we've said it all day, and we continue to say it week over week, and it's Cooper Cup. With during this game, he did a couple of things. One, passed Isaac Bruce most receptions as a wide receiver for the Rams. Isaac Bruce had 119, and Cooper Cup left the game with 122. So surpassed it, and will continue to surpass it as the next couple weeks go on. But like I said, it's Cup. I mean, he has to be an MVP candidate. If we're trying to figure out what other non QBs are going to be in the mix. We already have Aaron Rodgers, and we have Tom Brady. Tom Brady's didn't look so great without his weapons out there. So now who else are we looking at? We're looking at Jonathan Taylor with the Colts. He's done a great performance as a running back position, but you have to consider Cooper Cup. He's looking for that triple crown. He has 122 receptions, first in the league, 1,625 receiving yards, first in the league, 14 touchdowns as a receiver, first in the league. He's really the one driving that offense. He's the person who's out there who, if Stafford's in a pickle, he knows that Cup is able to, break away from his defenders. It doesn't matter if you're in man to man, he breaks away. If you're in zone coverage, he finds a way to slip through 2 to 3 receivers so that he has the ball, which he did for that 29-yard touchdown, which everyone was like, where was he throwing it to? And you just see him pick up the ball and, drive it in for that touchdown. So, he's number one as far as it goes, as far as the highlights go. What are your thoughts?
No, definitely. Like you're talking about, he made the Pro Bowl too. Really impressive work by Cup, and really offense can summarize as Cup making huge third down plays, making huge TD catches, being able to read coverage. Is just a lot of impressive stuff when you hear him speak, and he talks about like fire zone coverages and stuff like that. You can tell he can read when you're going in the zone, when you're going in man, and what you're trying to do. And if you're not 100% on where you're supposed to be as a DB, like he can go behind you, underneath you, make those throws easier for Stafford, or make them to the point where it's a difference between 20-yard catch and a touchdown. And it's just,
Mm-hmm.
or a pick and a touchdown. And it's a lot of really good stuff from Cooper Cup. He really does have a QB mind inside a wide receiver's body. And got to give Stafford credit. After a nasty pick, he comes back, throws a simple touchdown, and then a really, really great throw. That second touchdown was a really, really impressive throw, and being able to anticipate where Cooper Cup will be in a perfect angle to where it would be in Cooper Cup's hands, but it goes over a DB. That's not an easy throw. Not every QB can make that throw, and really good work by him. And then
Oh,
Sony Michelle.
no, you're good. I was just gonna say he also had two defenders. Like he had 1 second, and
Yeah.
he got hit on the back. I mean, he was flat on his back, watching it from the ground when Cooper Cup made that touchdown. So, it was definitely one of the best plays he's done this season.
hmm Yeah, and then talking about great plays, 18 carries, 92 yards, Sony Michelle, a lot of really hard running. It wasn't always working out, but like hopefully McVay's learning more and more. Like it doesn't have to fully work because it sets up the play action. And Stafford is so good in play action, and teams have to respect it, because if they don't completely fall for it, or they don't completely respect it, then Sony Michelle breaks out a 20, 30-yard run. And just really good work by him. Henderson, at least to me, he doesn't look fully healthy. Um, I know some people are like pro Henderson, anti Michelle, or like vice versa. I'm a little bit neither. I feel like both have their perks and drawbacks. They're different running backs, but generally Henderson doesn't look 100% to me.
Yeah, I mean, if Henderson has his hole, he's able to kind of speed out. I think he might be a little faster than Sonny Michelle, but I think Michelle, he's the person who's going to get you that extra 1 or 2 yards if he's met by defenders, or 3 to 4 yards if he's met with defenders. So I definitely think Sony Michelle is kind of lead back right now, especially as we enter in this big push, where we're really trying to s- incorporate that heavy run game into the pass game, which I think will help alleviate the pressure on Stafford and the receiving core.
hmm And talking about, well, let's talk about O line a little bit. Where I'll admit, like, I didn't have a lot of faith going into the season into Brian Allen. I really expected him to struggle somewhat, like he did in 2019. But like within first few games, you could tell like there was growth there. He was doing really good. Um, but man, Bobby Evans this game, he was rough. He was a sore spot for the O line, and you could tell he wasn't ready for it, and he wasn't ready for it in 2019. I feel like he's had a few decent games, but he's always, you're hearing his name, and that's not a good thing for O linemen.
No, and it was kind of a tragedy that we had Havenstein out, we had Nopum out, and so Bobby Evans is the next man up. And he's good to come in to kind of help alleviate some of the pressure on the O line to kind of give people a little bit of rest. But as being kind of a lead offensive lineman, it really showed the weakness in him. And I think that kind of didn't help the offense out as much. Stafford had 4 sacks, which wasn't it wasn't that great, and one of those was on Whitworth, and those things happen. But you know that offensive line needs to be strong for the running game to work, for the passing game to work, and it just seemed a little bit weaker on that side of the ball than in the past weeks.
Yeah, you could tell you were missing you were missing a starter there on right guard. Let's go to some halftime Rams news. Lions defeat the Cardinals to give a chance to the Rams to win division. The Rams are still like half a game behind technically because Arizona holds the division tiebreakers. So the Rams, I believe, either need the Cardinals lose to the Seahawks, and if they win out, the Rams can lose another one and they would have the tiebreaker if the Cardinals lose to Seahawks. Or the Rams have to win out and the Cardinals lose another of any of the other games. So it's not going to be completely easy, but there is a chance. There's a chance. I'm telling you, there's a
Yeah, I
chance.
mean, if the Lions can come in and and not just defeat the Cardinals. I mean, they beat them by 18 points. The right now the probably the worst team in the NFL considerably beat the Arizona Cardinals, which at that point in time was number 1 seed in the NFC. So it could be this instance where we've seen it before, where the Cardinals try to make this run and then they just start falling off at the worst moment. So that can give the Rams the momentum they need to kind of get into that number 1 spot in the NFC West.
And possibly a number 2 seed. Number 1 seed now is probably Green Bay's. I don't see us being able to get that unless if they completely collapse, which they won't because they play the Bears again. Like it's almost done deal. If we get a seed, the highest will be 2. We have some Pro Bowl selections: Zach, Cooper Cup, AD, Ramsey, and Gay. Uh, you know, no shockers there. Like we were talking about beforehand, my only disagreement is not having Stafford in there. Having Kyler Murray over Stafford is a weird choice if you look at their statistics. But in general, like I don't disagree with any of them, and I only disagree with one guy being snubbed. So
No, I'm 100% with you. A lot of times this Pro Bowl selection, it has to do not only with the fans but the players and the coaches, and seeing a talented quarterback like Kyle Murray having an exceptional year. Yeah, the last 2 weeks haven't looked well for him, and that was kind of after the Pro Bowl, votes were in, but yeah, not having Stafford in there, as not an alternative, was kind of disappointing to see. Rams only getting 4 players. 4 players is great to have in a Pro Bowl, but there are teams who did bring a little bit more into it. I think the Colts got 7 and the Chargers got 6 players in. So hoping to get a little bit more of our guys in there, but the NFC West or the NFC is a tough caliber of players, and trying to get all the stars in there is very difficult.
mhm. We also got some activate. It feels like Christmas. It really does. Got some activization. I can't say that word. From COVID reserve list. Got Terrell Burgess, Rob Havenstein, and Obo back. So some big names there, especially with Rob Havenstein. We really need him at right tackle there. Having Bobby Evans slide in there, that didn't work out so well. And I feel like our line's going to be a lot better having him in against the Vikings.
Yeah, and this whole COVID situation, and that might have been the other reason why our offense didn't get a slow start. I think the defense can play pretty well if they're not able to practice. But your offense is you're trying to make that connection between all of your players and making sure they're all on the same page, and those design plays of things like that. So I think COVID affected the offense more than it did the defense. I think they gave the defense more time to rest. Um, but disallowed the offense to play in sync because they weren't able to actually practice until they did walkthroughs on Sunday, but they didn't actually practice until like Monday. Um, so I definitely think that's what affected it, and having these players back and able to start that rhythm up before Sunday's game, because again it's a short week to play,
Hmm.
uh, but hopefully they can be ready for the challenge.
Yeah, I mean, impressive what they did on having not a lot of preparation time, especially on offense. It could have went a lot worse, and we still got dubbed. So, really good work by McVay on getting the team prepped as much as he could. Um, Defense going into these big highlights. Like we said, Von Miller gets his first sack. Really nice play by him as Russell Wilson was trying to escape pocket. And then defense playing lights out. Zach, I just think in general, like we had a Floyd sack, a AD sack. I'm just really balling out, shutting down. When you hold Russell Wilson to 10 points, you're having a good day.
Oh, very much so. We held him to 156 yards. He was 17 of 31, had his one interception by Rap. Our defense just, they just had his call. Yes, they didn't have Lockett on their team, but they still have the players. They still have Metcalf. They had, Penny and Dallas. Penny seemed like he didn't even do anything that game. It was pretty much just Dallas's show that night. But the defense was just on top of them. They're bringing the pressure. It's always nice when you get your three stars, Von Miller, Floyd, and AD, each getting their own sack in the game. Ramsey, what can you really say about him? He had two big breakups against Metcalf. He did have two penalties. One was a holding. One should have also been a holding, but they called it a PI. But those things are going to happen when you're going up against a high caliber receiver like Metcalf, and an aggressive defensive back like Ramsey is. So I'm okay with that. He stopped the big plays from happening. Sometimes you have to do a PI from making, or a hold or PI from making the big explosive plays happen. So sometimes it's worth it, sometimes it's not. Just all depends.
Yeah, you definitely if you have a 30-yard PI versus a 50-yard touchdown, you'll take the 30-yard PI any day. And Ramsey isn't perfect. He'll make mistakes, and he has from time to time. But he was pretty on point this game, being out last week, and it was pretty seamless. Dante Dion had a few really good plays. I want to give him a shout out. He had a really impressive pass breakup. I don't know if that was on DK. I think it was. But just like the entire defense showing up, I think we really missed Dion last week also.
Yeah, I mean, the Rams just had that the field covered. They didn't really have Russell Wilson had time in the pocket. I'm just sitting there and I'm like, he's just sitting there. He has time and time and time, and he couldn't find anybody to throw it to. And that's just a really good job by our cornerbacks, our defensive backs, our safeties, just making sure that they had no options. And hopefully they continue at that throughout the next couple weeks to make the big push.
Just a few quick throws to Everett is really all they got the entire night, and a
Yeah,
few quick throws to Metcalf.
yeah, I think Everett was their number one receiver, which is kind of crazy. 4 receptions for 60 yards. That's their big stats for the wide receiving role,
Yeah.
and it was to the tight end.
And then the non-PI call, we kind of gone over that, and Taylor Rapp ending the game, sealing it with the interception. I remember, I think it was last year he dropped a similar interception that would have ended a game, and it just kind of kept on going on. I know a few weeks ago we had a game where we had like 3 players in a row drop interceptions. I think
Hmm.
that was the Cardinals game. Um, but good on him for catching it. I feel like he's improved. Uh, his coverage has improved. I'm still not big on him being a starter. I think he's good in spurts, at least personally. I like him more near the box, being like more of a rushing Jamal Adams types for mixing in coverages and stuff like that every so often. But I don't like him as like a pure strong safety. I feel like he needs to work on his zone coverage a lot, and he has had games where he just gets toasted the entire night. And it wasn't one of these, so good on him.
Yeah, no, this was one of those nights where I was pleased with Rap's performance.
But then again, Seattle didn't really have much on the field as like wide receiver 2 or 3.
Yep, yep, fully agree. So you want to talk about next? Go to quarter four. Talk about next game.
Yeah, yeah. Let's talk about some Vikings.
All right. Well, the Rams winning this Vikings match would clinch playoff berth for them if they do win. So hoping that happens. Um, but this is a team it's a weird team. You never really can count the Vikings out in any contest. They're in the same division as Green Bay, so they.
They did beat them earlier
They
in the
did.
year.
They did beat them. They still have one more match against them, right? I think that's still
Yep.
on their record. But they have wins against Seattle, Detroit, Carolina, Chargers, Green Bay, Pittsburgh, Chicago. But then they've lost to Arizona, Bengals. They lost to Detroit, which again, Detroit's 2 wins were against the Vikings and then against the Cardinals. So. Um, it's just such a weird team, which you never know what you're going to see when they come out on the field.
Jekyll and Hyde. Yeah, very
Hmm.
much. Yeah, so like the weird thing about the Vikings is their offense is top 10, a really good offense, and it's weird, and not weird. It's just weird because Zimmer was hired as a defensive coach, and the Vikings last 3 years really have been known for really good offense, especially really great running back play. But their defense this year, especially, has been not good. Unlike like last week, we touched on the fact that Seattle, their defense gave up a lot of yards, but they weren't giving up a lot of points. The Vikings defense is not that. They give up a lot of yards and a lot of points. They are almost near like they're 29th for TDs given up. So Zach, what are some of the things you think we could take advantage of in this matchup? Because it has a potential to be a shootout.
It does. I mean, one of the things is our offense has to get their rhythm down first. I mean, I'm not concerned about our defense. I think our defense can hold up really well against this Vikings offense, but with Kirk Cousins, I think they can bring him the pressure and they can make sure that his weapons are very limited. But our offense just needs to get in rhythm as quickly as possible. Um, Getting in there, getting their distribution, that's something that they just have to get done. What about you? What's
Yeah,
your
I think our biggest key is just being able to have a good balanced attack and keep Kirk Cousins off the field. I think that's a very important thing. Keep Dalvin Cook off. Take a lot of time and force them into mistakes when they do get on the field. And hopefully our pass rush. The Vikings have had a really good O line this year, so it'll be a struggle to try to get pressures and sacks. But if anyone can, our front should definitely be able to, and just trying to win that turnover defense like turnover battle. We've struggled with that the last few weeks, and I hope we can just turn it around, get turnovers, play a clean game. Um, it is definitely a winnable game. They could be very Jekyll Hyde. They could come out and be awful, and we could blow them out. or it could be a shootout. It's a very like you don't get a good sense because the Vikings are just very sporadic with how they perform. Because really, it's either their offense winning the game, or they're just, if their offense isn't on, then everything goes to crap for them.
Yeah, I'm just kind of reviewing their stats a little bit. Kirk Cousins, his completion rate 66.1%, averages 7.3 yards per throw. And then just looking at it, we have to stop the run game. If they keep, I think one of the problems that we've seen in the past is, if the other team establishes that run and they just keep pounding and throwing short passes and eating up the clock, it's really hard for the Rams to kind of make up that time. They seem to just, they want to rush when they're down, and if they take away all that time, they don't have that comfort of, okay, we still have time. So then they get in that rush offense, and I don't think the Rams have always played well in that rush offense. Not saying that they don't do well if they're doing a hurry up offense, but when they're trying to rush to get additional points, that's when they start making the big mistakes.
Yeah, this is a possession team. You do not. This is not the team you want to, like. Let's say they go down the field, get a field goal first drive, and then we have a fumble on the 20-yard line and give it right back to them. This is not that type of team you want to give a 10-point lead to in the first quarter. Not that type of team, because they will be able to put us away and kind of hold us down the whole match. I truly believe. So hopefully we come out clean and we make it a good competitive game. And let's go into predictions, Zach. What you have? Do you have a W, a L, and by how much? Because
Yeah,
we're
so I
pretty close last week.
yeah, I should write these down when we give these predictions. So for this week, I do have the Rams winning. Um, I do think this is a winnable game, and I'm going to guess a 27-17.
Uh, I am gonna say 34-27. I think
Okay.
a higher scoring game. I feel like it becomes a little bit of a shootout the second and third quarter, and the Rams just kind of put distance between themselves in the fourth quarter and put it away pretty early in the fourth, keeping it away from Vikings. But it should be a great game. The rest of our season now is a really should be dirty competitive games, no gimmies, and we'll have to work for that playoff seeding, which I'll be excited to see kind of where we end up.
Yeah, because I think last week we were kind of just discussing which team we're going to be up against, but man, it's so hard to decide. We are on top of the wild card race, as at least as of right now. But man, knowing what team is actually going to be in the playoffs is just going to be an up and flow battle with all the teams that are in the 7 and 8 win column right now, including the 49ers. And um, we're going to have to face probably the Cardinals or the 49ers at some point in time throughout the playoffs. It's what's starting to look like.
Yeah, and it's still technically possible that if the like I was looking into it, the Cardinals, if they lost out and we lost out, we both could miss the playoffs. Technically, that's still a possibility. Is it likely?
Right. Yeah.
No, but again, nothing's a given. You have to go against every team every week and just try to keep it in your control, and it's in the Rams' control right now. If they win, they get a playoff spot, and that's not always granted, as we saw in 2019. We were one win away there, and hopefully we can pull it out this year. And I'll be excited. It looks like I'll probably end up going to a playoff game, possibly. So if that happens, I'll be excited to be reporting from there. And man, Zach, watching these Rams in the playoffs, that's hasn't happened often, and gotta be grateful for when it does.
Oh, very much so. Definitely looking forward to getting my playoff gear in place once that time comes.
Yeah. Well, so everyone, if you want, you can always send questions and feedback to feedback@eastcoastrams.com. Hit us up on Twitter. I'm RamFanAshton1, and you can get my man Zach at Zach Mayer, Maier. Just spell that out for you guys. Zach, looking forward to next week. I hope everyone has a great Christmas, and let's go Rams. Let's get that W against the Vikings.
Let's get that win.